if you just joined us, it's still Enterprise Friday, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's have our conversation for today. And we have it that amid the big weight of a present Confederacy and its inability to perform fiscal responsibility, the House of Representatives Constitution Review Committee yesterday proposed 31 additional states in the country. The committee stated this in a letter to the House of Representatives, which was read during plenary by the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, who presided over the session in Abuja. With the ongoing constitution review being embarked on by the National Assembly and the local government autonomy vigorously pushed by the presidency, investigation revealed that the existing states as of June 30th, 2024 are indebted to the tune of 11.47 trillion naira, despite increased allocation from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, FAC. No fewer than 9 states have agreed to the payment of the 70,000 naira minimum wage as approved by the federal government. And if the proposal scales through and is assented to by the president, Northwest will have an existing 7 states, will now have 12 states. Southwest will become 13 states, and the North Central would rise from 6 to 12. Northeast states will increase to 10 from the existing 6, while states from the Southeast will increase from 5 to 9, while the South also looking up to 4 more states to become 10 in total. Now let's have our conversation. We still have Emeka Madunagu. Thank you so very much, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Pleasure.
Beautiful. So let's of course, have the conversation. It's been brewing across social media platforms and equally traditional media on the additional states created by a committee in the Green Chambers, actually. And of course, let's talk about this issue. Number one, what is the necessity of doing this? Secondly, how important is it?
When you talk about necessity, based on what the proponents have been saying, that they are asking for the creation of these states to ensure balance, equity, and justice. But you see, creating states is not the solution. Restructuring is what we need, not state creation. Because no matter how many states you create, people will still want more states.
So what's the restructuring here?
Restructuring, devolve more power to the states.
Which of course it's been done. Federal allocation has been increased.
That is not restructuring.
Okay.
That's not restructuring. What you are just doing is just increasing allocation. It's not restructuring. That is it. It's not restructuring.
So what are the
restructuring? Restructuring is that there are functions in the hands of the federal government which should not be. The 3 tiers of government, federal, state, local government, should be independent. The state should not be an appendage. The local government should not be an appendage of the states. The federal government has no business intervening in primary education, primary health care, in roads in rural areas. What you need to do, the federal government currently takes over 52%, I think 52.6% of the revenue allocation. That should change. That needs to change. You have to give more to the states and to the local government, so that they can actually meet the needs of their people. When you say more money is being, how much money? How much money is actually being given to the states compared to their needs? Do you know their salary backlog of pensions? I know, yes, there is corruption. The governors are corrupt. I know that is a problem on its own, which I hope somehow we can find a solution to. That's the plot. That doesn't vitiate the fact that the allocation to the states is nothing to write home about. Because if, for instance, you say, okay, Lagos should take over federal roads, Lagos will crumble under that burden. It cannot. It cannot maintain federal roads. And to let you know that Lagos is the most indebted state in Nigeria.
So how would restructuring help Lagos now?
Restructuring, one, when you change the revenue allocation. 2, it will allow the states to be able to get benefits from those. For instance, federal roads. Signages on federal roads. How is the money shared on federal roads? For instance, you look at mining in the states. Somebody should show us where the gold in Zamfara. Where does it go to? How come the oil in Niger Delta, belongs to all of us? But the gold and minerals in other states, we are not really sure who owns it. Then let all states control the mineral resources within their territory and then remit taxes and royalties to the federal government.
But the problem is not about having that happen, but how transparent that would be. Because
the federal government has not.
Have state governors that don't even care.
I hope you know regionalism was instituted in the 1951 Macpherson's Constitution. And the regions continue like that even to independence. After independence in 1960, it was Decree 34, the unification decree, that actually abolished all those things. And then there was a counter coup of 1966, July 1966, that actually even made matters worse by when Gowon now came in, and then 1967 the created states. There was no reason for that, because all that should have been done was to abrogate the Decree 34 and then restore the regions. That's all that was needed. The regions should have been restored. But you now started creating states out of those regions. That's where we missed it.
But don't you think that the creation of the states was actually an antidote to totally, stop the issue that gave rise to the Nigerian Biafran Civil War, where a particular region wanted out of the whole?
No, why did they want out? There was a historical dimension to it. The pogroms in the north, the killing of Igbos in the north. And when you say Igbos in the north, it was not just people of Igbo stock. People from the south were also killed. Yes, people from the south were also killed. Yorubas were also killed in the north. If I take you back to, which year was this? When there was a sit-at-home in Jos, territory for 1 month. Yes, because there were some political wranglings and all of that. And then it resulted in violence. People from, the eastern region were attacked. But okay, when, what's his name? Major Chukwumanzobu and his colleagues, overthrew the parliamentary government, at that time. They claimed that politicians were corrupt, that politicians engaged in, subversion of the country, of the economy, and all of that. Now, when they did all of that, right? Now, they suspended parliamentary rule. Remember, we had parliamentary democracy. They suspended it. Then, by July, there was a counter. Then, Irunsi took over. General Agu Irunsi took over. Then, he now set up the Unification Decree 34, which gave the federal government powers, which took away the powers of the regions. Remember, those powers were donated by the Macpherson Constitution of 1951. But the military government now took over those powers, and kept and domiciled those powers with it. Then there was a counter coup, which, of course, if those who carried out the counter coup were sincere, what they could have done was just simply abrogate Decree 34 and then restore the regions, restore parliamentary democracy. But they had their own agenda. If you remember, by 1971, Gowon was saying he wasn't sure of when, there will be handover, there will be elections. He wasn't sure. So now he had begun to see himself as a messiah. He was now moving away from the idea that democracy should be restored to the fact that he should even be a recipient, a beneficiary of whatever new democratic arrangement that was to come in. And that's where we missed it. Because 12 states were created because, the Republic of Biafra, the secession Republic of Biafra was set up. But at the end of the day, the Republic was put down. The secession was put down. And we came back to Nigeria. But why didn't we go back to the parliamentary system? Because it was a representative system. There was a conflict in the Western Region House of Assembly. Yes. But those things could have been easily resolved. Since the coup the counter coup the proper thing would have been hold fresh elections in the regions, restore the regions, and the country would have continued that way. So in that way, maybe would have said, okay, since we remember in 1963, when some, of the so-called minorities, pardon me when I say so-called, because to me, I don't know why you will call some people minorities and some majorities, maybe just using population as a yardstick. I don't think that's fair enough, but that's personal. So some of the so-called minorities in the, in the southern region, actually wanted out of the western region. And that's how you had the Midwest in 1963. You understand? That's how you had the Midwest in 1963. So you could have looked at, okay, demands here and there, like the TVs, like certain areas here and there. Remember the Willings Commission of 1959 talked about, giving them the so-called minorities, their rights, and so you would have taken from that and said, okay, fine. We have a Midwest state, right? We could have gone on to say, okay, let's have maybe a southern Niger, region. You understand? Southern Niger region. You would have had regional government. And let me tell you, if we had continued with regional government, it would have paid us. In the north, you could have, addressed some of the concerns, the concerns of certain areas in the north. So that would have helped us, because parliamentary system meant that, it was parties. Parties had to come into alliance, into an alliance to form the government. So that way would have avoided all this talk about state creation, because the regions performed very well. Yes, you can say the population at that time was smaller. What was the population of Nigeria? We agree, but the regions were better able to articulate the needs of their people, to reach the people locally. That was why, for instance, Awolowo, when he was the premier of the Western region, he knew, okay, that education, as far back as 1949, he knew that, we had to do something about education, So he brought up the, universal primary, he brought up the educational policy. He brought up education as a cardinal policy of his government. Then he now looked at it that, okay, along with education should come enlightenment, which was why he brought in the TV and then brought in the radio. You understand? So he understood what the people needed. Then look at the agriculture, what he did with cocoa, with rubber. That was, a government which was, don't forget, it was in Ibadan. So it could really get the feelings of the people. It could get the feelings of the people. And cocoa farmers at that time were doing well. Rubber farmers, timber farmers were doing well. Go to the eastern region then. Was it not from, you could see how the government of Sir Michael Okpara, yes, how they were able to, look at the other palm in Imo State, look at different things they did.
In fact, some of the roads that is still being used today was built.
Even Awolowo roads. Yeah. I've traveled around the south. I've traveled around what we call the southwest today. Some hinterlands, you'll be shocked. You still have Awolowo roads. Those narrow roads with narrow bridges that one vehicle has to wait for one to pass. I have seen them in different states in the southwest. And you go down to the southeast, it's the same thing. You go down to the south, it's the same thing. So, creating states will not actually, in fact, that was my project topic as an undergraduate. State creation in Nigeria, I looked at the pros and the cons of state creation, that the agitation will never end, because people are not looking at, people just look at today. Okay, we need a state to address an injustice. But you forget that when you address one issue, another issue will come up. Look at now, the issue of viability. How many states are viable?
Exactly, because that speaks to the issue. Because the question now is, how come our parliamentarians have not been able to see some of those things that we're talking today? And how is it even viable, if it's possible, that more states will be created? We have from our reports that about 9 states only can afford to pay 70,000 naira minimum wage. Now, how is it possible that had skipped their mind to the fact that it's about viability?
It didn't skip their mind.
And not just about having the states.
It didn't skip their mind.
So
it was a typical Nigerian thing.
The greed.
God will make a way. Relying on religion to solve the basic issues of life. Which is this: you want to get married, you should know now that you should have an income that should be able to take care of you and your wife at the least. Then when children start coming, you should prepare for it. So when you're talking of state creation, how many of you currently pay taxes within that area? How many places produce taxes that can run even a local government? How many? You hear people saying they've stolen our money, and a friend of mine who was in the tax system, was saying, which money? That one day challenged the tire repairer. Which money? He said in Yoruba, that they are stealing our money. He said, which money? Is it your money? He said, do you pay taxes? You don't pay taxes, and you're talking of Owowa. Which one is Owowa? That citizenship or that taxation gives you a valid right to citizenship. So those fundamental issues have not been dealt with. Why? Because of the feeding bottle federalism we have. So every month, at the end of every month, commissioners of finance go to Abuja to collect checks. What we are saying is abolish that feeding bottle federalism. Let states go and look for money to run their territories, their jurisdictions. Let states look for money to pay salaries. You are saying more money was given to governors. It's wrong. Let the governors look for the money. They will be more creative. They won't think of stealing. Because how come that the regions were able to achieve much more than many states today? How come? By now, we ought to be seeing superhighways all over the place. We ought to be seeing industries. We shouldn't be talking of granite pyramids of the city. That was then. You can't be celebrating granite pyramid like Buhari, set up a phantom 419 rice pyramid. And we're not going to the past now, granite pyramid. Those things are outdated. What we're talking about is micro production, whereby on a farm, you understand, on a tomato farm, a pepper farm, you have, a micro factory where you can produce tomato puree. So you don't have spoilage, where you can, for instance, process the tomato, process the pepper into gravy that is thick and won't spoil. Then you can package that and export it, and you can go and sell it in other places. So you won't have the high rate of waste, high rate of despoilation that you see now. Because our weather is hot, generally hot. So, you need to spend a lot of money on refrigeration. Where is the light? There's no power. So what it means is that you have to combine traditional and sophisticated means, of preservation, of processing, So when you go back to the issue of states, why can't they pay 70,000 naira minimum wage? It is because the governors prefer their comfort to the well-being of their people.
So is it fair to say that those who have put together this proposal were actually just doing it because they were interested, most of them were interested in facilitating their way into office?
Thank you. They just want to be that is it. They just want to be godfathers. They want to be landlords to government, because when government comes in, first of all, it will start renting properties, to set up its bureaucracy before it will now get somewhere and say, okay, this is the land where we'll build our secretariat. What do you need all those things for? I, for one, I believe we should create more local governments. That is as simple. Create more local government, because you see, when you look at the issue of taxation, how many taxes does the federal government charge? Maybe about 7. State governments about 20. Local governments charge more. Look at the number. How many roads do we have in Nigeria? Federal roads, maybe 32,000 kilometers. State roads, around 30,000. Local governments, about 130,000 kilometers. So why would you now be bothering about states? Talk about local governments. Talk about more local governments. But the local government should be viable. It should be such that everybody will sign an agreement that we will pay taxes. We will pay our tax. Because if there are no natural resources to maintain that place, it's our taxes that we use to maintain that place.
Emeka, it's easy to say we'll pay our taxes, but let's not forget
No. I'm talking of
will be coming from.
No, I'm talking of people agitating for states.
Okay.
Let them first of all sign when the man is going to marry, does he go to the girl's family and say, I'm marrying your daughter, but she'll be the one taking care of me? Does he do that? He doesn't do that. There's an assumption. that he is coming, he's going to take care of their daughter. So when you are talking of state creation, you must be ready. Put down a written agreement, sworn affidavit, that we are ready to do what it takes to sustain this state. That they, first of all, scrap feeding bottle federalism. If you scrap this feeding bottle federalism, I tell you, nobody will ask for states again.
Now, speaking about nobody will ask for state, of course, we can't forget that or throw that in the dustbin when prominent people like Senator Ned Nwoko is already campaigning for it. Even has started campaigning for it even before those in the group.
But it wasn't listed.
It
wasn't listed in 31 states. So.
Anyocha was not listed.
Anyoma state.
And Anyoma, sorry, was not listed.
It was not listed.
So what was in for?
I don't know. Maybe it didn't play its politics well. But the issue is this: if you look at, okay, let me take, for instance, somewhere like Ogun State, for instance, when you have the attention for Ijebu State, there is this account, this story that actually, because if you look at Ogun State, the capital is far flung.
Yeah, far flung.
Normally, the capital of a state should be in the center. Look at the same thing with Delta State. Look at the capital. See where the capital is. By the end of one end, all those were political. Were creations of political exigency, Now, you see, you see people, in the Ijebu area saying that, no, they don't feel any sense of belonging with the capital in Abeokuta, in a far-flung place like Abeokuta. Then that they want their own state. You see, Ibadan State, they tell you that Anambra State is the size of the territory, that is being canvassed for Ibadan State. They tell you that
Anambra, the geographical size of Anambra
is the same size as Ibadan State. So why can't you give them a state? Anambra is the second smallest state in Nigeria after Lagos. Why can't you give them a state of their own? Then they tell you, the colonial provinces and all of that. But what I'm just saying is this: even the states we have are too many. Everything we do in Nigeria is over-bloated. Federal Executive Council, a minister must come from each state. You have 36 ministers. Now I think Tinubu has about 50 ministers. What do you need all that for? In the United States, as big as the United States is, over 350 million to 400 million people, they have just 15 secretaries. So what are we talking about? But here, everybody just wants, government is the largest employer of labor. So everybody sees government as a be-all and end-all. And that is not supposed to be. There should be productivity. People should be made stakeholders, contributing stakeholders in the political enterprise. Not, you go and collect and share. No, that sharing is what is causing problems. Everybody wants to have a seat at the table where the national cake is baked and shared. And that's what's bringing the problem. So you go to the Niger Delta. Look at a state like Bayelsa with just 8 local governments. Go there and you see the palpable poverty in Bayelsa. Even though they have a state, but there's poverty.
And despite the mineral resources,
but it's not in the control of the state governor. You go to the north. You see a state like Jigawa. That's the only place for now where you can produce wheat. How much of their weight are they throwing about? Jigawa has an international airport, for information. I've been there. Abandoned. All that state governors are doing is building airports, building bridges and all of that, just to steal money. But let's come the other way. If only governors could be enterprising enough, shun corruption, and then invest state money in areas, that will improve the Human Development Index, we'll have less reliance on Abuja. We'll have less reliance on the federal government. Because even with the allocation that states get now, they can still do a lot more than what they're doing. The money you spend on an airport, why? Because they don't want to go by road. For fear of being attacked. But if you go by road, you will see you will feel what the people are feeling. And then you will make sure those roads are okay. Like the governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti has come out to say that, look, that his administration will fix every dilapidated infrastructure in the state, whether it's federal or state, that they will fix it. That is the people of Abia State who use it. So if governors have that kind of mindset, you don't have to wait for the federal government. Do you know, there wouldn't be any road link between Abia and a neighboring state like Akwa Ibom. If not for the fact that the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, had done a lot, you get to fix the Mbise Road and Mbano Road, leading towards Umuahia, and then Umuahia, Ikwano, going down to Ikorekpene. The road is bad, but let me tell you, even though you will see signboards being fixed by tax credit from NNPC, but it's the efforts of the governors that have kept those roads running. I was on that road in January, and I saw that what? If not for the efforts of these governors, that road, that Umuahia Ikwano road, Umuahia Ikwano Ikorekpene road, will be out of it. I traveled to Calabar. Go down just when you enter Akwa Ibom, it's as if it's a different part of Nigeria. You drive through, you pass Itam Junction, you go down, continue to Calabar. Then you will now know
that you're in Nigeria.
Because on the way, the road is bad. It's bad. Bad is even very nice. Horrible. Yet, it's being financed by NNPC tax credit. It's being handled by a construction company. Now, the federal government has said they will put in more money, some billions to complete it, blah, blah, blah. I hope they do that before the rainy season. Because the rains are coming. So what I'm saying essentially is this. The clamor for state creation is being fueled by feeding bottle federalism. And the earlier we can put an end to that, the better. Because if you look at a state like Cross River, do you know that a state like Cross River, a state like Ekiti, a state like Osun, even to some extent Ogun, do you know that cocoa farmers made so much money last year? Because cocoa moved so much. It moved high. It was the best performing commodity in the world. Do you know today, palm oil, 1 ton is about $169. How much is 1 ton of, how much is one barrel of crude? $72. But palm oil is $169.
So which means
so
if more investment is to be poured into
into agriculture, into agro-processing. Nobody, yes. So even if the federal allocation is not enough, what are you doing? How are you? You must put in something extra. What extra things are these governors doing apart from paying salaries, paying pensions, and just doing some phantom roads and building? What else? You must. The way I was taught to, I'm an administrator. The way I was taught is that wherever you are, you must do something extra beyond just I was employed to open gate and close the gate. Are you going to now after open and close the gate, you can't sleep off? Then thieves will come and press you down there and kill you. No, you must do something extra.
Very true. Yes, of course, the creation of more states is more like synonymous to an old wine in a new wine bottle. That's what it seems like, because of it doesn't really make any sense. Just like Emeka had said, we have to, of course, push away the feeding bottle sort of governance style that we have taken upon ourselves that had made lots of administrators, governors very lazy, that they do not ever think about creating an enabling environment for themselves. What we should rather be talking about is creation, just like Emeka had said, of more local governments to take care of those in different rural communities. That's just about the time we have for today. Thank you so very much, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. All right, people, it's about time we have to leave it at that. Please do well to visit us. You can always find and reach us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igwe. Thank you for. We'll see you next time.